Welcome to the Surrogacy Warrior Podcast with your host, Kimberly Surratt. Join us as we dive deep into the heart of surrogacy, offering insights, sharing stories, and providing advice. Our mission is to illuminate every corner of surrogacy, from the emotional roller coasters and legal battles to the triumphant moments of birth and beyond. Surrogacy Warrior is more than just a podcast. It's a community for anyone touched by or interested in the transformative power of surrogacy. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, lawyersforfamilies.com. Now here's the host of Surrogacy Warrior, Kimberly Surratt.
Welcome, everybody, to Surrogacy Warrior. This is the podcast where we navigate all the amazing journeys through assisted reproduction and surrogacy, anything to assist families in becoming families and becoming parents. I'm Kim Surratt. I'm your host. I'm your passionate advocate for creating these families. Today, we are talking to my lovely, wonderful, amazing, not mine, but I'm taking possession over them, lobbying team. Tish and Andrea, I'll let you each introduce yourself. They are assisting the Insurance Access and Equity Alliance with their bill in California as a paid lobbying team. But why don't you both tell us a little bit about each of you, and then we'll kind of start digging in.
Sure. I'll kick off. And my name's Andrea 𝙬𝙧𝙧𝙬𝙧. Kim, thanks for having us. We're excited about it. Tish and I are actually just a couple offices away from each other, so we can go hug after we're done with this. But it's really
we'll have a drink. Let's be blunt. Let's be real.
It's really an honor to work with you and obviously the team and watch this bill have come to fruition and to success so far. But just by way of some background, so I started my career just almost about 30 years ago in and around policy and politics. So a glutton for punishment, I suppose, but also a strong passion for effectuating change. And about the first 16 years of my career, I was working with a North American energy company. So I guess that after those, almost 16 years, what I learned was I was able to take very difficult and complex policies and explain them in a simple way. And in order to do that, you really have to understand the policy, right? And so to do that, to your customers or to legislators and policymakers, and of all the things that, I realized I needed to work on, one thing that I realized I was good at was that. And so I took all of that work and transitioned a little bit of my career to working in the tech space. And that was in 2014 when I moved to Sacramento. I was commuting all over the country before that. But the real reason that I made that transition was not only for my own personal growth and career, which was part of it, but mostly for my daughter. She was, I was going to get remarried, but I was a single mom at the time and was flying over her school more times than I was rather than in it. And I just realized that, she was in 11 and it's like, I want to make her breakfast in the morning and dinner at night. And I need to make a change. And so rather than continue to grow my career in the energy space and move up through the ranks of the executive sort of C-suite, which was my goal at one point, I took a big leap of faith and a decent pay cut and moved to Sacramento with my daughter and my now amazing husband. And we just, started simply and grew up from there. I started with a tech trade association, still did the energy work because why waste 16 years of your career, but also really dove into all sectors of policy. And if in 2014, even though that was only, 11 years ago, the tech industry was just kind of coming on the scene from a engagement with policy on a daily basis. And so proud to have been at the forefront of that, but certainly challenging. I think by the time I started with an association called TechNet, started in California, grew it to a 50-state program with the CEO of this trade association. She does amazing work and was really proud to represent the technology industry, but also a lot of tough conversations. And so worked on education policy, cybersecurity, privacy, all the things, right? I think by the time I had left TechNet after 4.5 years, there probably wasn't a committee that we hadn't testified in. And so it just really was like this, like fire hose experience for me from a policy perspective. Then had the fortunate opportunity to work for a larger lobbying firm. And as soon as possible, I hired Tish and was so fortunate. I used to lobby her as the chief of staff, and she'll give you her background. But she's an ace and really can teach a lot of us on both sides of being in the building, what it's like to be lobbying and what it's like to lobby. And hired a great team. So I helped to open a office in California for a big lobbying firm, open up 7 operations very quickly throughout California. And then about a little over a year and a half ago, we decided to take fate into our own hands and create the 𝐲𝐪 Group, where we were fortunate enough to have a lot of our clients transition with us to the new firm, which I guess just shows that we do good work, and we're fun. We like to, I always say we take our clients very seriously, but not always ourselves. And we just we're true grit. So it's been an incredible journey. But yeah, that's about 30 years wrapped up, and I don't know what to.
What my favorite moment was, though? It was just you talking about having been in front of every single committee.
Yeah.
And how often I describe to people why they shouldn't get upset when a legislator doesn't understand what we're talking about. It's because they're dealing with literally everything. And you gave like those spotty, like, it goes 1,000 directions.
It's
right?
wild. And, there was an article, and we'll certainly want Tish to introduce her amazing self, but I think it was an article yesterday that came out that sort of was shining some light on the fact that, the public has 2 minutes, 2 witnesses, 2 minutes each, and then it's Me Too's. And, it's hard because, we're in, we have a democracy and a process, but we would never get out of hearings if there wasn't some limitations. So there's no perfect balance to it. But yeah, the 15-minute meetings, the legislators don't like them either, but you've got to know what you're talking about and be able to get to the point. So with that, let's let Tish introduce herself.
Well, thank you very much. It has been such a joy working with IAEA and to be able to do this important work that feels good and that makes a direct change and impact in the lives of everyone. So my name is Tish Rylander, and I'm a partner at 𝐲𝐪 Group. Before going to the third house, the lobbying, private sector side of things, I had a very long career in the legislature. I did every job possible in that place. I'm going to date myself here, but I was a mom to a 3-month-old baby when I wheeled him in a stroller. I was a single mom, wheeled him in, submitted an application, and was hired by an assembly member, a representative from West Hollywood. I worked for him for 6 years, and then worked my way up through the ranks and started off as an office administrative assistant, and then made my way to chief of staff. And I was lucky because at the time there were not a lot of women of color who were chiefs. It was a small group, and I had worked for mostly men who had identified my skill set and definitely put me in positions to where I got to show that off and build upon my skill set. But it wasn't until I worked for another woman of color, Assemblywoman Autumn Burke, that I was elevated to principal consultant and then to chief of staff. And it feels very full circle to be working with IAEA and on this topic, because the first exposure that I had to surrogacy and that experience and journey was through my boss, former boss, Assemblywoman Autumn Burke. She was a surrogate. Her daughter was born right between her primary and her general election. And very few people knew that she was having a baby. And watching her fight for reproductive rights, watching her fight for basic equity in the space, and also lead with her story of being, having utilized a gestational carrier, and her journey and how open she was about it was really inspiring. And so to be able to have gained the experience that I did, come out, and now be able to put it to use outside in the third house has been incredible. But I managed to work for at least 5 members of the Assembly Health Committee during my tenure in the building, and worked for 2 chairs of the Revenue and Taxation Committee. And so really over the course of about 21 years, I had the opportunity to grow those relationships, to understand the process, and to understand the mindset of staff, and then, obviously being so close to members, their, thought process, what motivates them, what brought them to the building, what keeps them in the building. It's not an easy job for staff or for members, and certainly not for lobbyists either. But, having the opportunity of being lobbied by Andrea and Tim at our firm, I was able to determine the type of lobbyist that I wanted to be. I had great examples like Andrea and Tim, and I had not so great examples, and I won't name them. But it really did help. And so when I, thought about leaving the building, Andrea was my first and only call, really. I mean, it wasn't a call, it was a face-to-face, but there was really never any doubt about the firm that I wanted to work for, and the people and the culture that I wanted to work for. And, I really respected their hustle. And I am someone that I take our work very seriously. Like Andrea said, I take our clients very seriously. I can't take myself seriously. I wake up every morning and go, I guess we're back in the ring today. It's every day is a fight for something, to fight, to keep, to maintain, to achieve. And you've definitely got to have that fighting spirit. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself. You've got to be able to laugh at the weird circumstances we find ourselves in, and the pivoting that we have to do all day, every day, for anyone that's in this space. And so it was a no-brainer to come join Andrea and Tim, and I'm just so very fortunate that they brought me on as partner at the firm, and that IAEA found their way to us, and that we get to really dig in and do this awesome work that, again, feels to me very full circle here.
I love it. So in 2003, I'm losing my voice for some reason. In 2003, I started lobbying in Nevada. My son was born in 2008. So I'm going to give this story just because you triggered me on it, where I had to run in with his car seat, throw him at legislative staff who do not work for me in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Throw them at them, and then walk in and sit down and testify on a bill. Yeah. I came back out and I was like, does anybody know who ended up with my son?
Yeah.
Because it's
Exactly.
Yeah, I laugh. My son was raised by this place. He now works here for an assembly member, and in his private time gives tours, because he ran the halls, and so in a place that didn't always welcome that type of that situation, that circumstance. I was just so lucky to have so many great bosses, to be surrounded by great staff, to see everyone around me elevate. And I'm just so proud of our network, and to be able to work with my son now is just awesome.
We love Cole. We get to love you.
It's wonderful. Our majority leader just had her baby. She's often holding him on the floor. There is a change. There has been a change.
It's so important. I remember, this is funny. So my daughter was interviewing for kindergarten, and it was a public school, but they were trying to figure out placement with teachers. And they were doing this little interview, and she's so cute. She's going around doing her little interview. And they said, well, what does your mom do? And she goes, well, she works in a big white castle. And they're like, she does? And so she was referring to the Capitol building, right? And they said, well, what does she do? She said, well, she's a lobbyist, of course. They're like, okay. this child's going to go to this classroom. And it was just so sweet. I remember her dressing up and coming to the Capitol with me. And, she now actually works for our firm too, and does some of our education work, having just graduated last year. And now she's getting into an MBA program. But we're both so proud of our kids, but we keep them close. We keep them really close. So
it's an important conversation. And here's why. We're going to talk about the insurance access and equity a little bit, but I want to talk about why we paid lobbyists and how you find good ones. And I think this human element and this human conversation, you two could not have been a better fit for what we needed for surrogacy and what our goals and our aligned goals are in that family conversation just now. It just demonstrates it tenfold for me. It just makes it that much more important. So just to kind of get everybody who's listening for the first time kind of on track about what we're talking about, the Insurance Access and Equity Alliance is a nonprofit that we formed specifically so that we could go work on advocacy for surrogacy in the insurance world and pursue some changes in California. And in order to do that, we needed to pay for a lobbying team. Now, this is where I want to go with this at this point. I get asked all the time because we're still fundraising. We're not there. We're not done. I want to move on. I want to do states beyond California that we have lien problems in other states, and we don't have pregnancy as a qualifying life event in all the states. So I want to keep going. But we hit a wall a lot of times where people do not understand why we need to pay for a lobbying team. And I'd love to hear how you two would frame that for people. And I know why I think it's important, but let's hear it from you first and see how it
it's
lights
interesting
up.
because if we were able to, right, if we didn't have families and people that we need to support, we'd take it on pro bono, right? But that you can't do that, right? And you have to, as business women, right, you have to decide, okay, these are the issues that I'm going to take on. Now, we have our own firm and we're able to take on the issues that we care about and we're passionate about. But in order to put our resources towards IAEA and the important issues, we have a business to run. And so we have to be able to focus, and that comes with paying us to lobby, right? You pay your dentist to make your teeth healthy. You pay your insurance, ironically, to help you with coverage, whatever for automotive and whatever. You pay
Whether you need it or not, you pay it.
And so it's really it is a business, but it's not a shrewd business, right? I think, to your point, Kim, you mentioned earlier, when you find the right team, you find the balance of operating on a retainer that's enough to pay for the resources, and is, able to also not, break the bank on the other side of the equation. So it's this very interesting dynamic. Now, one of the things that somebody said is, you're just catching up on my issue. What am I paying you for? I'm like, you're paying me for the 30 years of work. You're paying Tish for the 23 years that she spent in the building those relationships. You're paying for for us to be able to navigate and strategically get to the end point as quickly as possible with those relationships.
Yeah.
And now not everybody, if we took on 1 million clients, right, we dilute ourselves. And so we also we only have one client in this space dealing with this issue, or even surrounding issues where we're calling on the same committees, we're going up against the same opposition, because you dilute yourself and all of a sudden, your ass become a little bit, I guess diluted, to use the same word. So all of that, I hopefully is a little bit of insight into why you pay expert professionals. But you pay the right people, right? That have the access and can get the job done.
Yeah. And I think, it's so important. I think, the saying, so goes California, so goes the nation. We are the 4th largest economy. We are a nation state, to quote our governor. And there comes a lot of duty and responsibility with that. And what we have seen time and time again is what we do here in California, right or wrong, gets duplicated in other states. And we talk a lot about reproductive rights and freedom and family values and equality and all of that. And I have found, Kim, throughout this process that people are shocked to learn that this bill is needed. And so I think when you are dealing with a state the size of California, with the gravitas, for better or for worse, depending on what state you're from and your viewpoint, but when you're dealing with that, you need expert guidance. This is an incredibly complicated state. The process is incredibly complicated and nuanced. It is Sacramento is a hub for politics, but it is still a very small town. Politics is a small town. And so having someone that can go in, having a team of people, especially like at our firm, we all have different strengths that we bring to the table. We have different relationships. We've curated, these different networks, and we're able to tap in and between all of us, we've got it covered. And that can make a tremendous difference. And I joke about, when we met with our author, Senator 𝗲𝗲, for the first time in person as a group, and she joked that the reason that she's carrying the bill initially was because of Andrea and I grabbed her on the street.
Yeah.
We did.
She's not wrong. I mean, and not only did we grab her on the street, but we weren't even in California.
Right.
We were at the
Street that I
Democratic.
was not at, I would
Yeah.
never have been on and
No.
would never have seen her.
No,
Basically.
we were in the middle of Chicago. She was walking by us, and Andrea and I didn't even talk first. We saw her. We both went, and jumped. And it's that type of, those type of interactions and exposure. And then for the senator to know that when Andrea and I say, we think this would be a great issue for you to work on, this falls right in your wheelhouse, and you would have us. These are legislators that are very ambitious. They have a lot of people to answer to in a nation state, and knowing that there's a team, not just an advocacy organization, which is huge too, but that there's lobbyists and advocates that are going to be engaged and running point is a huge consideration that they have when considering whether or not to put their name on an effort. And especially a year like 2025, where a bill load and the amount of bills that they can introduce was diminished. And so they really had to look at each and every proposal much more carefully than they normally would. And so knowing that you've got an advocacy team that's there to help navigate this process, get all the information that they need, have the conversations, I think was huge for the author and other authors as well.
So it's on my side of it, looking at California, I am licensed in both Nevada and California. And so most of my lobbying's been in Nevada. Well, 99.9% till now. And so, there is a difference. I live 15 minutes from the Nevada legislature. I can run into that building. Despite doing most of my stuff pro bono, and because family law is like a death hole for people wanting to pay for lobbyists, when it comes to general family law, I still rely on a paid team through a nonprofit, through the Nevada Justice Association. The trial lawyers have always been kind and friendly to the family law bar, and they have a paid team. And despite being 15 minutes away, I can't spend all of my time standing in that building, overhearing the whispers about a bill and what's going on with it, we have to have boots on the ground in that building. And I don't think people realize just how much you mentioned Chicago and on the street, but the same thing happens in the hallways
Yeah.
in the building.
Yeah.
That if you're not there the whole time, you don't know things are going down a certain way.
Right.
You can't possibly do it. You can. I mean, there's plenty of legislators that have run bills without, on behalf of a constituent with no one really behind it and just went for it for themselves, but not anything at a level like this.
No.
This is a whole, like you said, it's so complex and it's so important where we're starting with. But now you take that tenfold from where I'm 15 minutes from the Nevada legislature. I'm 2.5 hours, 3 hours from the California legislature. Everybody in California, for the most part, is, well, not everybody, but there is a significant surrogacy industry in San Diego. That is a long ways from Sacramento.
Yeah.
They're not going to hear or be able to do anything that you're doing.
Yeah.
And where we have to have you. We have a handful of people right in the Sacramento area, and none of them are experienced in lobbying.
Right.
I don't know how grassroots
Yeah.
you do that, right?
Yeah.
You could. We can rile the forces and just hope
You can
it
hope
works out.
that somebody listens and, and you're aligned procedurally on all the things. But, it's interesting because in California, we run with a full-time legislature, and they expect that if you want to effectuate change, or not, right, and you're defending current policies, that you're also full-time. Whether you're an advocate or a stakeholder or what have you. And the way to be full-time is either, Kim, you move to Sacramento 15 minutes away from the Capitol and literally live there. Or you hire a lobbying team. But
For a single bill, as if that's practical. It's
Right.
not practical.
Exactly.
Well, and let's be honest here. I mean, this is not a small undertaking. There is significant opposition, and who has not just a full-time in-house lobbyist. They have contract lobbyists. They have trade associations and association lobbyists. I mean, you really want to give yourself, a fighting chance. And because you are in this issue area, you are going up against a significant lobbying force.
Insurance.
Yeah.
To be clear for anybody listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, the two parts of our bill, so everybody that's listening knows, is we're going after making sure that the liens are no longer a mechanism for discrimination in surrogacy, and we are going for pregnancy as a qualifying life event, both major feats with the insurance lobby. And it's one thing to fight for a change in a child support statute where if the professionals are all aligned, you're okay. But this is going up against corporate America, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it's, I think a lot of it too is you have, your consultants, your advocates that will also say to you, before you take on something like this, here are your chances. Here's what we're going to have to be up against. Here's what's working in our advantage. Here's what's working against us. And at the very least, set the table. And so that you guys as advocates and organizations can make well-informed decisions and know that with the right recipe, you can be successful. And it's not pretty. Our text threads, keeping you guys up to date, and the conversations that we're having, the amount of meetings that we're doing. I mean, it's a 24/7 job. There is no off time. And so that, and there could be a crisis happening overnight, and all of a sudden the focus is on that, and we've got to make sure that people don't veer off the page that we were all on. So it's there's just so much happening all at once here, and to be able to make the most informed decisions by having advocates on the ground that are in the building, in the space. I mean, we joke that we live there. I feel like we do. And it's being there around the clock to know something's coming before it hits, and to be able to offset that, and to have a strategy, a comprehensive strategy that at the end of the day, for all intents and purposes, is successful and achieves what we've set out to achieve.
I think this is such an important conversation because I know we have a lot of professionals listening to this podcast who have potentially succeeded on changing their surrogacy laws on the parentage end of things in a lot of states. From a grassroots perspective, never with a paid lobbyist necessarily, but I mean, there are big organizations behind that, but there really is a difference here. This is a big difference. But why it's so important. I mean, you talked about California. Now, as a Nevadan, I don't like to admit how important California is in the world, but in the nation. But it is the head, I keep calling it the head of the beast when it comes to this issue. The liens were birthed out of California, out of the insurance companies there, and they've been mimicked in other states. And we haven't seen anywhere near the start of this.
Yeah.
As a wildfire across the country. And so whether California is its own nation or not and influencing the whole country, it is because of that reason.
Right.
Like you cut off that head of the beast and stop the bad behavior there. All right. So in picking the lobbying team, now we probably scared a lot of people because I really am trying to gear up to motivate other states so that we can be in the same position to go after it there. But that's what we're talking about, that maybe it'll be easier in the next state. We'll have this as a basis. We'll have the groundwork. We'll have the non-statistics that we can't seem to pull that they want from us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So everybody knows we need to convince every entity in the world to start running statistics on surrogacy so that we can use it as the basis for every argument we have.
Data is it. Yeah, you can't deny it. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, and talk about that a little bit, Tish, because it's been an Achilles heel for me. It's been driving me bananas, but
yeah, I think we're attempting to do things in SB 257 that have been attempted before, especially as the pregnancy is a qualifying life event, that hasn't happened in the past because of that opposition. And I think we have been able and really good at providing personal stories, expertise on the matter from the law, from the legal angle to the brokerage angle. And so we've had all of our bases covered. I think I think in a state where we have such a thorough and robust, assessment of surrogacy, of guardrails, of a really thoughtful and safe environment, we are missing the data piece. And right now it's difficult because we haven't collected the information, but in order to collect it, it's going to take state resources. And California, if you're watching the news, we are not faring well right now. We are especially in healthcare. And so I think really trying to figure out how we get that data, and in the meantime, figuring out how to get there without it, and then preparing for, at a time when we can, how do we do it in a way that's thoughtful, in a way that aligns with the decisions that we've made in surrogacy, and for intended parents thus far. How do we make sure that we can collect that without being too, burdensome, or without crossing any lines, and having that as a backstop? But I do think this is one more step towards that. I mean, while the bill may not specifically address data collection or anything like that, I do think that it is one more way to put, in state law protections, non-discrimination language. And I think that there is a conversation around, in a state like California, where we have such a robust, oversight and thoughtful structure here. How do we fill that gap of data?
Yeah. So when we're talking data, just to color in the lines for those that are listening, it's, when they ask us how many how many failed surrogacies did we have as a result of the liens? Well, we don't know. We don't know how many people ran away and went and tried to find another surrogate in a different location in another state because the liens were too scary for them. We don't know exactly how many did or didn't pay the liens. How many companies really did chase after it or not, or harass them or not. We don't know these numbers. And we really don't actually know the exact number, other than through CDC of looking at clinic work. We got plenty of transfers that may have taken place in another state, but the birth in California. And that doesn't help us with the data.
Right.
The CDC data is based on the clinic in the other location. Yeah.
And luckily, we've had consultants and stakeholders within the legislature that understand that.
Proving negative, it's always a fun thing. I feel like every legislative body I've ever been in front of for anything always wants me to try to prove a negative.
Yeah.
Okay. How? Yeah. Prove what didn't happen. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Good luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with people, that want to work with the lobbying team, want to look at, kind of achieving similar things to what IAE has achieved, just give us some tips on working with the lobbying team, because I do plan on, dragging this model into other states, and I'm going to have to rely on people in those states to behave well with their lobbyists. So what are the behaviors that you want from your clients?
I mean, I would say,
be brutal. Tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, no, you're not. I mean, listen, if the lobbyist says they know everybody and can get this done immediately, red flag.
Yeah.
I think that, we look at it as, we are your lobbying team and your consultants. You're not our client, right? If there's an ownership relationship, you own us. We don't own you, right? And so I think there is almost as like a culture thing. I think to just mention culture with our firm, like that has to be the culture, right? Of, we're in this together and this is a partnership. I think it's really important to not get individuals and firms that are diluted in the issue area, right? Like they don't have every single ask in front of the committees that you're going to be testifying in front of. You want to have those relationships, but not so many asks that they have to pick and choose between their clients. So it's just, and reputation, there's no better, I think, referral than a legislator. So check them out with the sitting electeds, and get their thoughts. I think that's important too. So yeah.
And I think too, chemistry. I mean, it's a relationship. We are talking constantly. We want to build. We want you to trust that when we are giving you advice, that it's built on our experience and what we're picking up when we're having these conversations. But you guys have been incredible at providing me and Andrea the tools that we need to be able to go out there and fight. So I think the difference, and you can see it when you talk to lobbyists, they're either checking boxes and having conversations as required, or they've got a fire in the belly for it. And I think you've seen with Andrea and I, we are fiery, if nothing else.
And brunettes, and
fiery brunettes.
It is.
We love to win. I mean, I always joke, I'm like, do not give me a righteous cause, because I will just be the most annoying person in the world. But really making sure that I have everything that I need, which I know that if, I don't pretend to be the expert here. I am on my way to becoming an expert. And that's what happens as you work on these issues. But I know that, when I'm talking to an office, they know that behind me is an army, that they can ask a question. And if I don't have the answer, I will get it so fast. And you guys are accessible around the clock. You have been willing to do all the work that we need, the drafting of talking points or fact sheets, background information, providing immediate feedback on analyses. And we are so much better because of that, where it would take, in different circumstances with other clients where you're not getting as much information, that on-ramp and that achieving that level of expertise can take a long time. For us, it was so fast because of how much information that you guys have provided and the resources and the bench that you have with IAEA that I know there's no question that Andrea and I could ask you that you don't have an answer for, and not just an answer, but tangible, information to back up as well. And I think that's really huge.
Yeah, I think the other important point too is you have to trust your team, and sometimes you're going to hear from your lobbying team or consultants not what you want to hear, right? Yeah. But the lobbying if you're just hearing what you want to hear, something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, Tish's example, it's like when she's asking you for this information, it's because there's pushback, or, we need to get this in front of X, Y, and Z immediately. And so it just has to be that trusted partnership. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be willing to accept bad news at times. It's nerve-wracking, but you have to not let it be nerve-wracking. You have to just go, oh, okay, it's another hurdle. Okay, it's another step. Yeah. Lobbying's a weird, strange thing. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So, question of the day for 𝗲𝗶𝘀, at what point will you be opening an office in Oregon for me? That's the next state that we need to go after.
Okay. All right, we'll start. We'll get a leasing agent and start.
Yeah, I'm not sure if one client in Oregon's enough for it, but
hey, you know what?
It's a quick flight.
Yeah, quick flight. One good client sounds amazing.
Sounds amazing. We just got to keep fundraising first, but
that part, yeah.
Let's get the precedent and then make it a little bit easier.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
we'll get this thing signed.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't shy away from a challenge, so that's part of it.
We're in good company.
That's why we found each other, Kim.
That's why we found each other. I know it really does work that way. I could tell, I could feel it in my bones that you were the right lobbying team for this issue. Part of it is, quite honestly, to be blunt, you're so much like my key lobbyists in Nevada that I've worked with for 20 years. So I was like, oh no, we're good. I got this. I know how to work with them. I know what to say and not say, and when to shut up, and when to just go be a good little employee and just go get things done. So
I know, we appreciate
well,
that.
thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. That means a lot.
Well, it rolls and it moves fast. So just quickly to give everybody an update, we made it through health and we've made it through Senate appropriations.
Yeah.
So we are about to go on the Senate floor. And
then we get to do this.
We get
and
to
the
go
houses
do it all over again.
Pitch all of their bills, and that's when things get really interesting. So we're about halfway through the process now. And so, everyone, like I said, I think earlier, this is around the time of year where folks really start paying attention, getting activated and engaged. We've had engagement on this issue from the opposition, but I anticipate that will dial up now that they've seen we've got legs, we're moving. We have, and this is incredible, we've not had a single no vote.
I know.
And we've had bipartisan support. The chair of health on the Senate side was incredibly supportive. The chair of Senate Appropriations is very supportive. And so far, things are looking good for us on the Senate floor. And as we'll bring a lot of that with us over to the Assembly, but it's a different House with different circumstances, different considerations. And so we adjust accordingly. More people.
More legislators.
Yeah, yes. we have 80 in the Assembly versus 40 in the Senate where we're getting out of. And, one thing to note too, and this kind of gets back to your question, Kim, about like why hire a lobbying team? Sometimes it's just not about the policy, right? It's just, the member politics and, how many bills any particular member has and where votes are casting on other things totally unrelated to your measure. So to your point,
and who's mad at who because they messed up their other bill that was not relevant.
Yeah.
1,000%. And it all matters. And your team has to be watching those things and be cognizant of it.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's a puzzle. And you just have to be, have your hands on all the pieces.
Well, I appreciate both of you more than you understand. And if anybody's listening out there, this is definitely, if you want to do your own lobbying or hire them for your company, whatever it might be, tell them how they can get a hold of you guys so that they can do that.
Yeah. So contact Kim because she knows how to reach us 24/7.
Yeah, there you go. 24/7. Yeah.
Yeah. Our website is 𝐕𝐻𝑒VAUBURR.com, DEVEAUBURR group, GROUP.com. We're available literally around the clock all the time. And Kim, we just want to thank you for having us. You're just such a warrior in and of yourself. And it's really an honor to work with you and represent you. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. And we're just going to continue to beat this out. We're going to do this.
Yep.
And then we're going to be really talking about a big party at that point. So
yeah, maybe we'll
yes,
do
ma'am.
a celebration on the podcast to round it out.
I think we should. I think it'd be just too much fun. We'll have to. There'll be a lot of just the ripple effect of this is going to be huge, and it's significant to the industry. It's significant to anybody trying to plan a family, and they may not understand it. They may be listening to this podcast, and it's not necessarily on the issues of exactly how to form a family on surrogacy. It's about the advocacy behind it, but it will help a lot of people.
I do want to say, and I would be remiss if I didn't, and Tish alluded to this as well, but in Senator 𝐒𝐻𝐦 𝐒𝐲, if you are listening to this, I think a ping to her, whether it's an email to her district office, Sacramento office, or let us know if you want to send her a note to just thank her, because she is also a warrior and she has taken this on. She introduced the bill very early on and is fighting for this cause and for all of us. So
and not only she had a pen in hand and the bill jacket and a couple of floor sessions was going to everyone to get them to sign on as co-authors. And I mean, she's just a force. And so we're very lucky to have her.
I adore her.
Yeah.
I have told multiple people she may be one of the only women I'm actually intimidated by. And it's awesome. It's amazing.
In the best way. In the
best way. And she just, she picked up the passion in this, like as if she had been living surrogacy her whole entire life. Right?
Yeah. And Ray too. I mean, her staffer, Ray, son, has been awesome too. And she's really been doing a great job for the senator. So, it takes the whole team led by the author, and so far so good. But like I said, we never let our foot off the gas, and we're just going to see this thing all the way through to the bitter end and celebrate.
I love it. All right, my friends. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Surrogacy Warrior. I hope you found this discussion enlightening, empowering, caused you to go lobby, hire a team. Hopefully this team, if it's anything in California at the moment, till they expand their offices. So if you enjoyed the show, make sure you rate it, like us, send me ideas on things you want to hear. Stay connected with us, please. My website is lawyersforfamilies.com. There's lots of other resources there for you. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. Together we are warriors. And until next time, stay strong and keep fighting for your dreams.
You've been tuning into the Surrogacy Warrior podcast with your host, Kimberly Surratt. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, lawyersforfamilies.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.